going on, guys? It's Thursday night. Got Brian Simpleman's Comics. Welcome to the live stream, as we do every week, covering this week's hottest comic book releases and CBSI Bolo list from AKA Mr. Bolo. Got my co-host Coca-Cola. Got my Coca-Cola co-host here, AKA Mr. Bolo, Jack DeMayo. Jack DeMayo, what do you got to say for us tonight?
What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing in the chat? It's Jack DeMayo here, aka Mr. Bolo, here to talk new comics this week. Very excited to get this started.
Right. So bring us both in on here. Got a little new setup, putting us up top. Guys that are in the chat, if you guys video, audio problems, definitely let us know. We got people coming into the chat right now. Giselle Perez, which I always kill his name. Thanks for always forgiving me. Dan Percy, Roger Heller, always great guy. Always commenting like the nicest comments. Like if I ever have a low self-esteem day, Roger Heller, he makes me feel better about myself. Andy Timberland, guy needs no introduction. Indie Spotlight series on comicbookinvest.com. But we are here tonight. As we said, we're going to go over this week's hottest comic book releases. We have a couple announcements right before we get into this. So last week, before we got off, Jack had announced a little contest we were going to do for, what was it, a Matina Spawn Bolo box is what you called it, correct?
Right, yeah, we got a nice little lot of Matina Spawn goodness from when he first kicked off the Spawn run. And I think we're going to announce the winner tonight, right, Brian?
Right.
All right, so
you go ahead and announce it, man. I got the screenshot set up.
All right, so the winner from last week, let me pull up the comment, is I don't want to mess up his name here. Bolo Man 179, is that it?
Bolo 179.
179. So first off, I like your name. Second off, I have no idea what it's in relation to, but I like it. But second off, he said that Spawn number 291 was his favorite cover, with Spawn in that alley looking ominous. Kind of, what do you say? Yeah, the gloomy darkness. So, and I definitely concur. If you haven't seen that cover, definitely check that cover out.
Right. So this is kind of coincidence. I had nothing to do with this, by the way. But a couple days ago in the YouTube community, I always put the Bolo list when you put it out. And then I also announced how, which I'll get into in a minute, the giveaway for tonight's live stream. And he had commented, hey, unfortunately I can't make the live stream. Will this be a giveaway just for the live stream participants or comments afterwards? I said, unfortunately, the giveaway for tonight's stream is during the live stream. But as I'm tripping over words here and not getting my point across, he won this at least, so he'll be happy to hear that, even though he's not able to participate in tonight's live stream. So that's good news for him. But before we get into the actual Bolo list, as people may or may not be aware, this show has actually got a sponsor now, and it's Nick Dwortman. He has slabbedheroes.com, a fantastic site if you want raw comics, graded comics. Definitely check him out. His prices can't be beat, and he currently has on his site right now is the Adrianov Virgin Wolverine variant. I forget which store is actually doing it. Is it Big Time Collectibles? Probably a couple stores. But he has it on his site right now, 9.8, guaranteed. You can buy it raw, I think $25, or you can buy it graded in a 9.8, fast pass grading. I think he has it for $90 right now. But fantastic comic. Check his site out because he's got a bunch of stuff going on. He's getting ready to go to C2E2, got a bunch of autographed CGCSS books you can get from him. But for tonight, he has donated a book to give away, and we're going to give away this Catwoman #4 Art Germ CGC 9.8. Gorgeous book, love it, people. You're in comics, everyone knows Art Germ. It's one of those artists that everyone like. So he's donated that book tonight. He has the book, it's shipping from him. So whenever the winner is announced, we will get that address and get it to him, and it'll be shipped directly from him to you. So that wraps up the announcements real quick. We have one more later, but that's a surprise. But definitely check out Slabbed Heroes. I'm really grateful for him for sponsoring this show. Definitely appreciate him. I've ordered, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to lie, within like the past month and a half, I think I've ordered 10 slabs off his site because I see something and the price is good, and I end up picking up. Nothing super duper, I mean, but nice books. So, what we're all here for, and that is the Bolo list for this week. And before we get into the Bolo list, we got more people coming into the chat, so I definitely want to recognize them. We got Comics with Bueller. If you guys don't know who Comics with Bueller is, which I'm sure you probably do if you're in this channel, check him out. He was the channel that I spotlighted in this week's Tuber Tuesday video. Not that his channel even needs a spotlight, because fantastic comic channel. We got Weapon X Scraw, Rantor Tim, Walt Parrish, aka Mr. Bolo's in here. But they're rolling into the chat, and this is good to see because it's always better than just crickets and Jack and I talking to ourselves. But back over to the purpose Bolo list. So this was the be on the lookout list for this week, right? And
Correct.
for those people that are just turning into this live stream for the first time, we'll go down the Bolo list, kind of talk about the comics back and forth. Sometimes Jack and I agree, sometimes we don't agree, but it's always good conversation. And then if you're in the live chat, definitely let us know your thoughts on these books. We go right down the line. So starting with confirmed first appearances, you had Avengers number 14, right?
Correct.
So
this is.
Go ahead.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. Okay, so here you have. I'm gonna get the exact name. We have the first appearance of the Legion of the Unliving, and you have the team appearance, which we've talked several weeks about, kind of teams and where they go. But you also have each individual character's first appearance, and this team, I think, is an exception to what we've talked about in previous weeks, where I've made it known that team appearances are tough. But last week I made the comparison to wrestling, and I said it's one thing if a faction is organically built of a bunch of young guys coming up together versus a bunch of guys just thrown together for no apparent reason to try to create a team or form a faction. This is more organic. We're getting new characters. We're talking about almost every week that we've done the live stream about how horror is making a dent in the hobby. And here we're getting kind of a move more into that side of the Marvel universe, and we're essentially getting kind of an undead version of the Avengers. So it's I think that there may be some legs here. It's one of my favorite first appearances I've seen in the last several weeks.
Right. And so when I actually made it to my LCS this week. Made it last week to pick up, like Friday I picked up last 2 weeks of books. But I actually made it to my LCS. It's kind of bittersweet because my youngest, who's in pre-K, was sick and didn't go to school. So I didn't have to get him off the bus at lunchtime. I was actually able to go to the comic book store. And they had a couple of the regulars. I think there was one or two of the scrolls. And of course, they had none of the variants, which we're going to get into later on down into the variant buzz. But I picked up a copy of the regular. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. And I thumbed through it real quick, and it seemed pretty interesting. So I'm anxious to read it and see how it is.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet. I've done the same thing, thumbed through it. I think the characters look cool. I'm all in on the concept. It was one that I think it's funny. It almost caught people off guard, but it was in the solicitations. There was evidence there that this was going to be happening. So I just think that maybe it was cover art, maybe, some of the spoilers that leaked early that got people hyped. People jumped on this late, and now people are really digging this book.
So I guess I lost the spelling bee, and I think Bert Nasty said I misspelled February in the thumbnail. But yeah, we'll get that fixed. But so I also want to put a disclaimer out. Well, not to speak on Jack's behalf, but I'm pretty sure he agrees. Just because it says a confirmed first appearance, we're just saying that it's a first appearance. We're by no way saying that this is going to be like some spec genius play, and anytime you see a first appearance on here, pick it up as an investment. We're just saying, putting the information out. Hey, there's a first appearance in the book, but don't go thinking that going to be. And I'm not saying it isn't, but
right. Well, and if you followed the Bolo list on a weekly basis, you'll see there's first appearances every week. We don't go a week in comics where there's not several first appearances, and we don't go a week where, other than the first appearances that I list as confirmed, there aren't 3 or 4 other appearances that people are bringing up and bringing to my attention
Right.
once releases start hitting the shelves. And there's no way for all of those books to spike, certainly not in the immediate. So you definitely have to pick and choose. And the only thing we can do here is kind of give our feel on it.
Right. So moving on to the next one, Adventures of Super Sons #7. And this had I tried to start reading this. I didn't pick it up physically. I was trying to read it bootleg on my computer, and it crashed my browser, so I didn't get to finish reading it. But Adventures of Super Sons #7. Tell me what you think on this.
Here we have an apparent first appearance of a new Teen Green Lantern. I've actually been told, I wish I saw who the commenter was. A commenter said that they had bought this book, and the character appears on, I believe, the cover of the variant, but not actually within the guts of the book. So I don't know if somebody in the chat has read the book and can kind of enlighten us on that one. I ordered some of the variant, but I haven't received them yet.
The Dustin, I won't say his last name so I don't say it right. Right?
Yeah. Dustin, yeah. I was going to try, but we'll leave that one alone. So
I'll say what I call it, and it's Gwen, but it's not. It's like just leave it at that. I say it's Dustin Gwen. But anyhow, there's my mispronunciation for the night. Well, one of many, I'm sure. But yeah, so the solicitation said he was like kind of, sort of, but he's really just a trainee Green Lantern. But
right, so you could be looking. This could be a cameo versus we get a full appearance later. It could be a non-important character that people are just hyping because they're looking for those first appearances. This is one of those you kind of got to wait and see and be cautious about.
Now, if I was going to put my money on something, though, I would rather put it into the new Young Justice that has the what's her name, the female Green Lantern.
Right, that was going by Teen Lantern.
Yeah,
and I totally agree. And I think that DC is financially behind Young Justice and the whole Wonder Comics line. So I'm kind of bullish on those for sure.
Now, I am hoping that, because this is going to be a 12-issue maxi series or whatever they call it, right? So I enjoyed the first Super Son series, and I'm hoping this one might hit 12, but I hope they bring them back, even if it's not their self-titled series. But I enjoyed these books. So that's it for first appearances. Yeah, take a deep breath. We got through that 2 books, but
2 books, yeah, all 2 books.
So we're gonna go into Reader Buzz, and this was kind of a I won't say a big book this week, but Old Man Quill #1, right?
Yeah, definitely highly anticipated from Marvel readers. The Old Man Hawkeye series, I think, caught people off guard.
I love that. That was it Marco Cicchetto?
Yeah. It really was a great series. And I think if you were a huge fan of Old Man Logan, you would definitely like Old Man Hawkeye. And I definitely think you're going to be in for Old Man Quill.
Yeah.
It's got all that same vibe and feel.
Matt King turned me on to Old Man Hawkeye. And like 2 issues in, we were chatting in Hangouts, and he was telling me all about it. So I picked it up, and I ended up picking up the whole series of that, and it was a really good read. So shout out to Matt King on that one. And we even got, look at that, we got like a YouTube comic celebrity in the chat now. We got Comic Tom. So shout out to Comic Tom. We got Comic Book Gallery. We got I Got Issues. Michael Wang. Keep on wanting to shout out, aka Mr. Bolo, but he's in the chat. But so out of these covers, because they had the there was the Virgin. I didn't put it in here because they had the Virgin one of the Hidden Gem type variant, right? Someone also made the comment of the regular cover with Old Man Quill asking if that's he was wearing a Punisher vest, because the vest, it does kind of look like Punisher logo on the vest. I wouldn't say it is, but
yeah, I can see that. I would say honestly, my favorite looking cover is the main cover. I just kind of like the look of Old Man Quill with the mask behind him. I think I like the hidden gem variants because of the story behind them. You're getting kind of to showcase artwork by some legends that maybe people haven't seen or isn't predominantly well known. So I dig the whole hidden gem series of variants. As far as secondary market appeal, we're not necessarily seeing Old Man Quill moving the market yet. Uh, and I don't. Somebody asked me today about the hidden gem variant. If I thought it would move. We haven't seen sales of it move yet. But I think that this is a series very similar to Old Man Hawkeye, where it may land on the reader buzz several weeks, and it may take till issue 2 or 3 till people realize I need to go back and get issue 1. And once those issues start selling out in stores.
So to kind of piggyback, but pivot with the Old Man. So we're talking about Old Man Quill. We talked about Old Man Hawkeye. Talked about Old Man Logan, and of course, right now the series they got going on right now is the Dead Man Logan. And shout out to Comics with Bueller. He got me hooked on Dead Man Logan. But this week's release, which is I'm sure is going to be in everyone's weekly picks, and it's hot already, is that Zafino, the 1 in 25 for Dead Man Logan. Great cover, sold out a lot of places online already. I think that's going to be hot, and without holding everyone in suspense, that was actually my pick of the week for next week coming out. But
and there's zero chance it won't be on the Bolo list already. Just looking at what sales are at.
Yeah, I know some people are even testing it. Right, they're pushing the envelope. I think some people listed them. I don't know what the sales. I haven't looked since yesterday, but I know someone went high on it and was listed it for $50-$60. I don't know if that's what they sold for yet, but yeah, I know they were selling for above ratio.
Right, there's some people getting real ballsy right now, and you're starting to see those $100 listings. So I think people are going to try to push the price on that one.
So real quick, anyone in the chat, if they read, do we have anyone that read Old Man Quill? Because I haven't gotten around to it yet, that's for sure. But Old Man Quill has a good setup.
Comics of the Old Man series is.
Say that again.
Comic Book Gallery, I think it was, said it's the slowest of the Old Man series is from Marvel.
And then Comics Misexplained said has a good setup. So
yeah, it's issue 1. I think we might have to give it some time. It definitely doesn't have the same interest as some of the other Old Man series. It's just one of those things. I think we keep looking to write those series off, and they just keep performing pretty well.
But also those other Old Man series, the Old Man Logan, Old Man Hawkeye, those are more. I mean, outside of the 2012 Guardians movie when it came out, Hawkeye and Logan have a bigger character following to begin with. I mean, Peter Quill has started gaining a following, but I don't know. I think this is going to lead to better things. I think we're going to get like an Old Man Baby Groot next. So,
well, and then if you really want to go out on a limb, look at all these actors who are aging out of their characters. Right. These Old Man series could one day provide these actors an ability to reprise these roles. And we've already seen Fox go there with essentially an Old Man Logan movie. So who's to say one day Disney wouldn't do a 40s or 50s Star-Lord with Chris Pratt down the line.
Right.
That's a super long-term play, but that's not something I think is out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Old Man Tony Stark.
But yeah.
So yeah, we kind of, I'd say, beat the dead horse on that book. But the next in there, this was kind of a polarizing book, and I'm glad Andy Tamberlin's in the chat because the next one we have Magical Beatdown number 1. This was indie book. Was it I forget the publisher, Spotlight or Sprocket, or I forget the name of the publisher, but printed. Andy, who does the Indie Spotlight series for comicbookinvest.com, he reached out to the publisher, was trying to ask because he had heard if the book might be print to order or print on demand. He didn't get a straight answer. They just answered, I think, with the type of printer they use to print the book. And then there was some Twitter response from the writer and the publisher saying, "Calm down, comic investors." But Silver Sprocket, thanks. But yeah. So
this This was the type of book that you went to your LCS and asked your dealer for, and he looked at you and said, "What?"
Yeah, I
This
get what
was
you're.
one of those. This is one of those under ordered. It's a 5x7 book, so it's got kind of like a weird shape to it. We're struggling to come up with a publisher. I think it was one of those books that got under ordered when the hype got out about it. Definitely shout out Andy Tomberlin from the Indie Spotlight series from comicbookinvest.com. He was all over that one from the get-go. Definitely was the one that put that one on my radar as well. And we definitely heard back from people that they were struggling to get this at the LCS. But as you can see, Andy's in the chat right now saying, buyer beware on this one. And we've seen this with these small publishers, especially these ones who like to immediately take these shots at speculators and investors in the market. So this may be one you want to be real careful with about going too long on.
Right. And then, I mean, if you like the book, buy it. I mean, it's not just speculators, of course. Just beware if you are trying to spec on it that
Right.
there's no solid answer. It kind of has that the TKO type vibe where I love TKO books. I bought like the Sarah series, but they're print to order or print on demand. So as they get orders, they print the books out. So if you are thinking, oh, it's going to be a low print run, reading the tea leaves, it doesn't seem so, and that's from Andy's research. But so yeah, great book. It had like all the pages were printed in like that neon color, whatever, right? I believe.
Yeah, it's different looking. It has a cool, appealing look for sure.
My LCS Third Eye Comics, well, their smaller store that's local to my area, which is about an hour away from their big store. They didn't have it in, so I didn't get to pick it up. I was curious if someone did pick it up. Is it one of those indies where it's regular size, or is it one of those weird indie titles that it doesn't fit the normal bag and board, and like that Brian K. Vaughan book that came out a while ago? But moving on from that, the next one, this is one you had on there. I had seen it when I was doing the weekly picks, but I didn't have it in there. But I saw it was on your Bolo list, and that is The Girl in the Bay #1. That's like back-to-back weeks with Dark Horse, hasn't it?
Right, and this is one of those Dark Horse books that, to be honest with you, I know very little about this book. It was certainly a book that they were pushing, but the key to this book is the media speculation surrounding. It's from an imprint within Dark Horse that is one of those like crafting comics made for adaptation in film and television. So I'm kind of bullish on those types of books because regardless of kind of their appeal in the comic book market, if it doesn't pop early, you still have that second chance because when you get that option down the road, you're going to see the spike immediately and you've got that jump off point. So this was a book where I think there's a real possibility where we could see something happen down the road because that's apparently the intent of this imprint within Dark Horse.
Right. Did you make it? Have you been to the comic book store this week or anything? Or
no, this week this week I did not make it to the LCS. So yeah, just relying on the online orders this week.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I always wonder, like, everyone's comic book store is different on how they order. And I was just curious of how many of these were sitting on the shelves, like something like this. The small Third Eye store down here, they might order 3 to 5 copies of it. Of course, the bigger store in Annapolis will have a bunch of them because they do a much larger volume of sales. But yeah, I was just curious if you were there and what you saw. But
yeah, so yeah, and typically what I would see in my area is the two shops. One we'd be looking at like 3 to 5 copies. It's a smaller shop, and then Heroes aren't hard to find. Who runs Heroes Con? You'd see more like 10 to maybe 20 on a Dark Horse #1. But definitely not a huge, say, run within this area for sure. We got Dan Percy from the Reading Pile from comicbookinvest.com. He said it's from Burger Books. So that was the imprint I was talking about.
Oh, gotcha.
So definitely, so that's definitely one to keep an eye out.
So moving on in the reader buzz. This was kind of a cool looking book. I actually didn't pick it up, even though it was in my weekly picks, just because budget was a little tight, thanks to all my money going to freaking slapped heroes lately. But Vindication #1. This I saw a bunch of people in the store picking this book up when I was there Wednesday. This was the one that was like a revenge story with a twist or something like that. I believe it was.
Right. This is a book that I think I'm excited to read it. It's a book I ordered specifically to read, but you read the kind of the synopsis of it, and it's another one that's really made for adaptation. So you're talking about a man who was previously was he tried or convicted of a crime?
Yeah.
And then he's being kind of investigated for a similar crime later on, and you've got racial undertones in there. And when you look at where Hollywood's going with movies and movies that are having an impact and success, not just at box office level, but we're in award season right now. Stories of race relations, stories of especially these kind of like blurred lines, moral ambiguity, a cop trying to do his job, but at the same point trying not to, cross some sort of line. These are stories that Hollywood jumps all over. So I definitely think this is kind of what we talked about with The Girl in the Bay, a book that is kind of made to get an adaptation for it. And if it's from Image, top cow.
Right. That's why I was also looking at it again to make sure, because if it was Skybound, it's probably going to end up on Amazon, because Kirkman has that agreement with Amazon, right, for Skybound imprint. But I always think, especially when you say, hey, you see this as being optioned, the next question that always comes to mind is, do you have a vision of who might be cast? Of course, looking at the synopsis, I instantly would think like Michael B. Jordan or Donald Glover or.
Right. It's funny you say that, because when I read the synopsis, as soon as I hear young black man and I know that man has to carry the movie, my mind goes Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. But yeah, I definitely think Donald Glover could pull that off as well.
Yeah. Because I love me some Atlanta.
Right. And then you would need to cast the cop as somebody who can really play that conflicted moral ambiguity kind of cop. So that's one I'm definitely interested to read. I think I'm going to check out all 4 issues.
So real quick, what are we going into? Next one. This one's been running strong. I mean, Mortal Hulk, like, before I bring it up here real quick, I might be totally off base here, but when it first came out, I was expecting something like Totally Awesome Hulk, which was kind of like, but I picked it up more for the Alex Ross covers, but then when I started reading it, this series has been great from issue 1 on to where it is now. So it's starting to get, or I might just be becoming aware of it. It might have been all along, but it's starting to get the attention the story deserves. But this one had the 2 covers for it, right? The Alex Ross and then the Scrolls variant.
Correct. Yeah, and I definitely agree with your sentiment. Another person I've heard say the same thing, actually, who was in the chat earlier, is Comic Tom. This was a series, I think, that caught a lot of us off guard. I remember picking up issue 1. I grabbed 1 copy. Right. I did that just to read. Read it, liked it, so I grabbed 1 copy of issue 2. And it really wasn't until issue, I'd say 4 or 5, that I got to the point that I was like, oh my God, there is a serious run going on here.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until then that I kind of started going back saying, I need to grab more copies. I need to be all over this run. And we've said this on a weekly basis, and we talk about this every time that this book kind of comes out on this list. It kind of has like that Donny Cates Venom kind of vibe where you feel like you're in the midst of something important. You feel like you're reading something that 10 years from now is still going to be something that collectors and fans of Hulk are trying to grab. I think that there's a lot of debate this week about whether or not there was a first appearance in issue 13. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter, because I think these books are going to be back issue gold. I think we're going to end up seeing most of these books in the run so far be at least $10 books at some point. And I think that the Alex Ross covers combined with excellent storytelling, combined with kind of telling us different type of story than we get from the typical Marvel 616. I haven't heard anyone complain about it yet. It seems like a just true home run.
Right, and so it's written by Al Ewing. He's also going to be writing the that Avengers No Road Home series that's coming out. So I'm
A lot of
interested
hype
in
on
see how
that.
that story goes. So next, this is like my favorite title to read right now. I've read one book this week, and it was been this book, and that is These Savage Shores #3 from Vault Comics. Um, I bad thing is the first one came out in like November. There was like a month gap in between all the issue, well, which is normal, but it was like as in it skipped a month. Like one came out in October, December, and then now. So I started reading #3 tonight. I had to go back and read 1 and 2 to just make sure I understood the story because it was almost like I don't want to say Game of Thrones ish because there's not as many characters and you can actually pronounce and understand the names. But so I went back and read that. Great story, Vault Comics. If you guys haven't been reading these Savage Shores, I keep saying it. It's not just try to pump up an indie publisher, but if you read one indie book right now, from my opinion, these Savage Shores is the one to read. And their second prints for all their titles are always fantastic homage covers. So definitely enjoy reading this, especially if you like 1700s. It's like Calicut, which is like I keep saying Calcutta, and the whole vampires and Indian warfare, as in not Native American, but actual Indian. But I'm doing a bad job of selling this book. It's a great story. Definitely pick it up. Um, but if you guys haven't been, at least wait till it comes out in trade if you don't and worry about the money. But you won't regret getting it. And as I stuttered and stammered, I'll let you go ahead and give your input on this book.
Well, I think though you've covered it. I think you've been one of the most passionate people about this book. I will admit that this is just like we talked about with Immortal Hulk. This is a series that issue 1 came out. I was like, okay, I didn't really jump on it. Issue 2 came out, and then started to see that there's some heat here. And now I sit here and I go, man, I'm late on this one. I totally missed this book. So I've gone back and grabbed some of the homage later printings. I think at some point I'll probably grab the first prints just for the PC, whether or not we're talking adaptation possibilities or any sort of spiking. But I'm definitely all in on reading the trade. I'm waiting on that. I think that you're seeing sales. We just talked about this. My comic shop had 2 sales today at cover price plus shipping. The very next sale that went off was $15. Every copy that's listed right now is $15 to $20. So we're seeing an indie series with serious momentum and heat that's getting incredibly low print run. And again, another story kind of in that dark horror realm where it's like these type of stories are what's popping in the market right now. This is what people want to read.
Right. So I will add one thing. I have a Patreon member who's out there in Montana where Vault is as well. So he's the one that kind of turned me on to some of these books, starting with like Alien Bounty Hunter. So shout out to Regime Seabrook. He's the one that turned me on to Vault. But I did see that Vault just got added to Diamond's FOC distribution. So they're now up there to where you can order up to final order cutoff. I didn't know that wasn't there before because that's how ignorant I am with how comics are distributed. But so that's big news for them, and they're happy about it. So kudos to them. Also, Heathen's coming back. Heathen was a hot indie, like 2 years ago, year and a half ago when it came out. So it's getting ready to come back, and I guess they got a screenwriter for possible Heathen movie. So we'll see how that goes. Definitely enjoy these Savage Shores. My second favorite, probably of Vault right now, would be Wasted Space, but that's another great story. That was supposed to be a 5-issue mini, and it got picked up for ongoing, and issue 6 just came out this week as well. So next on your reader buzz, we have, if I can get to it, Batman number 64, right?
Right. So here was an issue where advanced copy spoilers are what created kind of the interest and buzz in this issue. You have um, at the end of the issue, without going into too many spoilers, but we have the return of Gotham Girl and a very injured man. I can't remember what his name. Gotham guy. I can't remember what his name is. But these are characters that were originally introduced in issue 1 of the new Rebirth series. So we kind of, there was a lot of spike and speculation. The issues never really took off. I think there was a higher print run when Rebirth started than what we saw with New 52. New 52, there was a lot of negative connotation coming out when New 52 first came out. People kind of slept on those #1 issues. The #1 issues spiked. So coming forward into Rebirth, I think a lot of people expected that. A lot of speculators, myself included, ordered real heavy on a lot of the #1s from the Rebirth line. You got high print runs and kind of depressed values. In issue 1, one of the biggest things talked about were these 2 new Gotham caped masked superheroes. But they were in the story for a little while, and then they've kind of gone away. And we saw a lot of heat dry off of these characters. And the fact that they're coming back and we're seeing the reappearance in this week's issue is something to give speculators and Batman fans reason that if you don't have issue 1, to go back and grab it. Specifically, I would say that I think it's cover A where they're on the cover.
Right.
Or to go and possibly, I've seen that book on discount lists when Midtown does discounts and
or
things
TFAW
like
and their huge sales.
Right. Yeah. I mean, commonly a book you see for $2. I see it at conventions too.
I think there's a lot of those rebirth titles, like especially the first 10 issues of some of those titles would be worth, kind of like how the New 52 run went, right? Where
Right.
a lot of those first 10, 15 issues, as they got later into their run, those first issues were starting to pick up in price because people were going back and getting them. Of course, some of them end up on the not 10? But
Yeah.
I still think that even like that Batman that was on the not 10, I'll pick it up. If I see it for $50 for a decent price, man, I'll pick them up. But yeah, I think like you're saying with this, those early Rebirth issues, especially for Batman and Flash, are my favorite Rebirth titles. So whenever I see low 1 through 10, especially the cover Bs, if they're cheap, I'll pick them up.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that Sean Murphy cover B for this is phenomenal. But so next up on here for last in the Reader Buzz section was Champions #2.
Right. This is a book. Again, this was another one. There were a lot of spoilers hitting the internet the day before. I honestly wouldn't have bought this book. I would not have grabbed this book off the shelf. But it was a book that I went and ordered a copy to have a physical copy to read online, and I went and read digitally yesterday. This is a tough one to describe to you because I don't know how spoilery to be, but there is a death of an incredibly major character in this issue who is then brought back to life. And in being brought back to life, I'll just say Miles Morales is the one who has to make a kind of deal with the devil, and there's going to be some consequences coming out of it. So this could be an issue. I don't know how much Marvel plans on playing Champions into kind of backstory and continuity, but this could be an issue that really defines Miles as a character if this is a story they go along with, because Miles got put into a position in this a real unenviable position in this issue, and was forced to make a decision with no real good outcome. And I don't think as the issue ended, he fully understands it yet. And it'll be interesting. Champions wasn't a book I was on my radar at all, but I'm all in to now go read issue 3 and see where this takes Miles.
Right. I didn't pick this one up, and I did pick #1 up because the solicit looked good. That's when they were like trying to expand and going global or whatever I believe they were saying. But you had also mentioned expanding on this, or I don't know if you were mentioning just the comic book world or if you're talking about movies. But this would be something that I would like to see expanded, especially with the whole animated, like the Spider Verse. If they could roll this into not even just the animated film versions, I think this lends its hand perfectly to that.
Well, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
Miles is so new of a character. They're gonna need to mine for source material.
Right.
So that's where I'm saying like how important Marvel views this story. Is Champions kind of like an offshoot thing?
Yeah.
Is this really something that they're gonna make a part of Miles's lore and origin? Because this could be his Batman moment. You know,
Right.
this is his thing that kind of changes the way he looks at being a hero, similar kind of to the way Spider-Man was when Gwen Stacy died. And he realized, like, I'm constantly faced with choices, and there's always going to be damage.
So that wraps up the reader buzz section. I just want, as we finish these sections, we got new people coming into the chat. Clint Jocelyn, David Seeking Near Mint Comics, Rag718. Bunch of people got great conversation going there. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure we catch it and bring it into the actual live stream here. Rantor thinks New 52 wrecked a lot of character story. I agree with them, but I think there's also parts of New 52, especially with, like, of course, Snyder's run, but that are valuable. But I do agree with some of what he was saying there, and not doing a really good job of defending my point while I'm trying to read the chat. But
that's in that point. I hear that. That's tough for me because I got out. I never grew up reading DC. A lot of DC. I read more Marvel. But when I got back into comics, I really went heavy reading DC. So getting back into reading, some of the first things I read were the Court of Owl's story right when it came out, Jeff Johns, Aquaman, like 1 through 20 something run. And then that Jeff Johns Green Lantern 1 through 20 for me was one of the best things I've read.
right.
That issue 20, the moment where all the green lights get turned on to let Hal Jordan know that everyone's got his back, is a cinematic moment that needs to be in a movie.
Right. So one thing, like we always say in this stream, those in the live chat, Kingpin Comics just joined. Kingpin Comics, Comic Book Gallery, even David Seeking Near Mint Comics, a lot of them have YouTube channels. If you guys have YouTube channels and you're in the chat, post it in the chat. Let them know what your YouTube channel is so other people can see it. Just do me a favor and don't post other people's YouTube channels in the chat, because that's been happening as well. But if you have your own YouTube channel or support the community, there's a difference between poaching people into other communities and then soliciting your channel. I don't mind that, but definitely a lot of great people in the chat, a lot of great YouTube channels. So we're gonna move on to the variant buzz, right?
Right.
The first one, this definitely had a lot of buzz. Didn't catch anyone off guard, that's for sure, because it was well aware of prior to FOC. But that was the Derek Chew Harley Quinn variant that came out this week, and it's still sold for I won't say crazy money compared to what some variants are selling for right now, but it was hot. I mean,
I think we talked about it like a week ago, where we said, this book will be on the list, and that's what you said. Everybody's aware of it. Everybody's aware of it, true. But this is a changing game, and these DC cover Bs are some of the best investments you can get into. Immediately, we're seeing spikes on a lot of these within the first few days of release. If the cover art pops, anything is possible. And as I've talked about every week, we're talking about some of the best long-term spec plays out there. You're talking about a $3 to $4 introductory cover price. If you've got deals with your LCS for 20, 25% off, you're talking even cheaper than that. And we've seen this the last couple of weeks, where when you get kind of an artist change and you get a different feel to a variant cover, there can be a pop, because it just reignites those collectors of that character. And I think we saw that here with Derek Chew and the the Harley variant, and they've already solicited now
Right.
another variant, number 59, where you've got kind of a landscape view, kind of an upshot of her, and that one's already creating incredible buzz in the marketplace.
Yeah, that one's actually his Instagram profile picture, right? So,
Right.
and this art isn't like new art; it's stuff that he's had on what, like Deviant Art or something for a couple years. But um, I agree, it was different. It's definitely there's not much gray area. People like it or people hate it. Um, I enjoyed it because I think because it's kind of loud and different. But I pre-ordered it. I actually, I pre-ordered and got like multiple copies, and I bought one of those slabbed heroes. Had it on his site for $30 at the time. I bought a 9.8 for $30 plus shipping. So, and because of that, I bought it because I liked it. And I usually, if I buy multiple copies, I have a short box for each one of my kids. So each time I buy a couple multiple titles, I'll throw a copy in each one of those. So when they get old enough, I give them a short box and they have a little mini comic book collection. Mostly it's Batman and Spider-Man, of course, but um, they probably won't want anything to do with it or comics. But here's to hoping, trying to indoctrinate them. But so yeah, and Chew had a couple variants that came out right before this, right? He had some like the Impulse variant for Young Guns. There's a couple, like 2 or 3 other ones. And of course, when you first see it, you almost think it's Art Germ at first. But it was definitely a talked about book. But moving on to the next one in the variant buzz, we kind of showed this before, but this is going to be the Avengers 14, the actual Scalera variant, which I had mentioned. My LCS Third Eye Comics, their smaller store, which I want to make sure I keep saying that, they didn't have any, right? They don't get a lot of variants unless you pre-order them, but they definitely didn't have any of these, and these look like this was a hot cover this week.
Right. So we talked about the first appearance. So obviously that's driving the market. You get a beautiful wraparound cover here. Excellent artwork. But we also get is the first appearance on the cover, albeit the back cover. This book is definitely a good candidate for one of those clear boards so you can really show off both sides of the cover. But we're seeing big time spikes on this one already online. This is definitely like probably the book to get this week as far as from a speculation standpoint. If you bought into this one early, you can already get out. But I think that there's still probably room to move on this. It really all depends on where we kind of go with these characters, but it'll be very interesting to see. But this is the book that people have been jumping on, and it was available for a long time. It was available on Midtown on, I think, almost up to release day. Right. So it wasn't a book that like immediately sold out. I think a lot of people, the buzz came late on this thing, and then we started to see people jumping on the variant. And we've got Clint Joslin in the chat from the Run the Table article from comicbookinvest.com, and he points out you get the first Baby Man Thing appearance too. As silly and funny as that sounds, there's been a lot of buzz on that. The little man thing on the Colonel's shoulders.
It's like Quado.
Yeah, so I think that it's as silly as it is. We've seen Baby Groot first appearance be a $20 book, right. $25 book. So I like this book because you have so many different possibilities. And I do believe Marvel at some point is going to want to do something with whether it's Blade or, with the Morbius stuff. At some point, we're going to see more of these type of characters cinematically.
Right. And not to keep bringing up animation, but outside of Sony, that's where one thing where I'd love to see Marvel pick up the pace, where I think DC does 10 times better than Marvel, and that's their animated features. So this, to me, would like lend itself perfectly if they wanted to actually put out a good animated movie, like even like the straight to DVD releases type thing, right? But yeah, because I think there's a couple of Marvel animated movies. I like the Doctor Strange one. There's a couple others, but some of times they're kind of lacking.
No, it's totally true. You can sit and binge animated DC movies. They're extremely fun. A lot of times I watch those and then I go, man, why, like the Suicide Squad one, why didn't they just
Yeah.
make the animated.
Yeah, I wanted the
But
regular movie to be more like that. Like their
right.
actual.
So yeah, I'm in total agreement. The Marvel ones have basically stunk. Having said that, Into the Spider-Verse was so good that it kind of makes me look at DC and go, okay, guys, I want to see what you guys are going to respond with. So I think we're really upping the bar in the animated game, and it is kind of unlimited possibilities of what we can see there.
Right. So moving on to the next book, continuing with Marvel's 80th anniversary, like one shots. Right. This was the Gunhawks. So
So
go ahead.
yeah, so here we get was it Gunhawks? So it's another one of the Marvel anniversary 80th anniversary series, and I think speculators were just wise to this after seeing 2 weeks in a row these 80th anniversary one shots, the variants sell out and go up in the market. People jumped on those two variants, the Skrulls variant and the Young Guns variant, fast. They were sold out at retailers, and again, retailers couldn't adapt to last week and the previous week's sellouts and get on any more copies. It was past FOC. So, we're seeing small spikes on those books, but they're dried and they're gone, and you won't see them in the LCS. So at this point, people are going to have to hit the secondary market for those.
Right. The Young Guns reminds me kind of like Lone Ranger type cover, right? And then
Right.
the Scrolls cover, not to be political, but it looks like you got Joe Biden and Barack Obama down there fighting off some gremlins. But
God, I never would have thought that until you just said that.
but yeah. So yeah, my buddy, they had one copy of the Young Guns cover. My buddy, Washington Apple Matt, we call him, if went to Baltimore Comic Con with us. But he grabbed the Black Panther, the Young Guns one, and then I grabbed one of the regular covers just because I've been enjoying those one shots. Normally, I'm not a one shot kind of guy, but a lot of these Marvel 80th ones have been pretty good.
Yeah, like we're talking about, I would love to see like a Marvel Presents type series where maybe each month you're getting a different one-off story from a different genre. We've seen horror, we've seen war comics, we've seen sci-fi, and now we're getting Western. And you see from the Golden Age collectors that there's still markets for these books. And I think that we're going to see, if we ever want to kind of not have those types of collectors kind of die out in the market, then we've got to have new books coming. Otherwise, you can't, nobody's reading Golden Age Western books.
Right. So, totally my mistake, but I skipped over Female Furies #1, which I didn't add. I have the cover, but I didn't have it added in here. So that's my mistake. Female Furies was the Matina cover, right?
Correct.
Which I kept, when I first saw the title, if you look at it real quick, I thought it was a comic about furries, not furies.
Yeah.
But that Matina cover was hot, and it was just, a regular B cover, right? It wasn't incentive, was it?
Correct. Yeah, you're looking at a DC cover B, the kind of mock virgin style. This book, as soon as it got solicited, had immediate heat. The thing that has hurt this book is the timing. It got solicited, and no more than 2 days, 3 days after the solicitation, we had the whole Matina Bleeding Cool expose and subsequent scandal that has kind of gripped comics in the secondary market. There's so many mixed emotions on Matina. So some people still say, you know what, it happened, but I love his work, and I'm going to keep buying it. And some people have just said, no matter what, I don't want anything to do with it. So we're starting to see sides being drawn there, and I think it's affected some of these releases. Having said that, we haven't seen this book yet attached to any sort of art theft. And what it has going for it is we know that there's a New Gods movie being written by Warner Brothers, that they're planning to really do something big with Big Barda, Mr. Miracle. And when you start looking at variant covers, specifically variant covers by popular artists, for the large part of the last decade, the New Gods have not been a part of anything DC has done. So there really isn't a lot, as variants have become popular, of representation for the New Gods. You've got some DC New 52 125s, that are definitely limited, but let's be honest, we're not getting the quality of cover art that we're getting here with this big Barta cover. So if this movie comes out, when this movie comes out, and if this movie's a hit, this is going to be a book I think people are going to come back to.
Right. And to me, I I'm glad that people are down on Matina because I hope it brings some of those books that I couldn't afford continue to drop so I can actually pick some up. Because I really think with the attention span that people have with comics, that within I'll say 2 years, but it won't even take that long most likely. But Matina will be back there again, and it'll be a new news cycle. Someone else will be worried about something else or complaining about some other freaking artist or somewhat. So yeah, people might be down on some of his books now, but I'm hoping that gets to where I can afford books that I couldn't afford before of his. So buy
Well,
low.
there's a plug for comicbookinvest.com right there. Ben Stein, the writer of the Hot 10 list, has his Not 10 list out right now. Comic Tom 101 has the video up. And the number one book, a little spoiler, is the Matina Gamora variant,
Right.
where a book that was booming to just out of this world prices and has kind of come down in value to a more attainable level. And you can sit there and say, well, Matina's, he's getting cold. Let's move off of him. But a good savvy buyer buys when the market moves away from something. Now is buying opportunities for a lot of Matina stuff.
There was one other picture that I didn't have that I'm bringing it in now, and that was the Young Justice Sanford Green variant, right?
Right. Right. So this is one we talked about a little bit about Young Justice. We brought that up. You and I are both very big on this series. Again, they're putting money behind it with Wonder Comics. They brought in Brian Michael Bendis, paid him a fortune to bring him in to kind of kick off this younger aimed kind of demographic stuff where they're trying to get some of that Miles Morales kind of juju going over at DC Comics. Issue 1 was very popular. We saw buzz going on it. Issue 2 is a very nice kind of upshot of the team, kind of huddled, putting their hands in the circle. I'm a Sanford Green fan. Sanford Green, I don't think gets a lot of credit, but he does some great work, beautiful covers. And if you've ever met Sanford Green at a convention, he is absolutely one of the nicest guys that you can walk up to, who's tabling and talk to, get artwork done. He'll do a head bust sketch for you for like $10, $15. He's actually very local to me. He's from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm from Rock Hill, South Carolina, and I went to college in Columbia, South Carolina, and spent a decade there. So I'm a big Sanford Green fan. But I'm very happy to see him get his work getting kind of some mainstream attention, so to say, on a kind of a big 2 book. You've seen him predominantly with Marvel over the last few years, as well as his independent stuff, but like Bitterroot being one. But here is a great example of him jumping over to DC and kind of the vibrancy he can bring with his artwork.
Right. I've been picking up a couple of those. Was it Spider-Man? Was it 234? The Sanford Green variants. They're 1 in 25s. Picking them up for like $7-8. But you're a Sanford Green fan. I'm a Sanford and Son fan. But so yeah, I don't know. I had that picture saved off. I didn't get it included in here, but we added it in kind of impromptu wise. So my color's back up. That's why I was out of order. So the next one you had, this is like a Keen Spot comic, right? And that's God Mode #1. So,
right. So go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, you have it in variant buzz. I have all the covers there with the regular cover on the far left, and then the three regular price cover variants following it.
Right. So this was one I didn't know what category to put it in. It sold out in all covers almost everywhere. There was some late editions. I guess you could buy it on the publisher's website after the book had sold out and started to spike. But this is one of those stories where I think people checked out the solicitation. They had some interest in the book. It's got kind of that animation manga art style that has honestly never really appealed to me, but is very appealing to a certain demographic. And I didn't really know where to put it, but because it was like a total sellout, all covers were selling it, I put it in that variant buzz category. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating you grab a variant over a a regular cover. I think if you were speculating on this book, the go-to book is that incentive cover. But if you're not going to grab the incentive cover, when you usually have a select group of A, B, C covers, usually cover A on an indie book is the cover to go to. So if you were looking, I would probably say cover A or the incentive. But I think that this is a book that is not, because of the low printing, because of the lack of availability, that I think you're safe grabbing any number of the covers. But it's also one that I would watch out because we don't know where copies lay in the market yet.
Yeah, Keenspot, it's a good publisher. They're also very responsive on social media. So if you ever wanted to reach out to them, they'll definitely reply back. I forget, there was an issue, it was probably about a year ago, I had my weekly picks, and I think it was like Ethan Van Sciver did a variant for it, and it was like $6 or something like that. And they're definitely aware, and they follow if you post on social media, because they started sending replies back. But I guess they're also known for, what is it, Trump Titans? They do a lot of the Trump Titans books.
Yeah. So that was another book that probably could have been on the variant buzz. Andy Tomberlin from the Indie Spotlight series from comicbookinvest.com, that was a book he brought up, was that Trump Titans, the Superman, Death of Superman homage variant. They released that this week. So it was a good week for Keenspot.
I also wanted to bring attention that I saw him pop in earlier, but our actual sponsor was in the live chat, and that was Nick Dortman from Slabbed Heroes. So he's in the chat, and we're almost to the point where we're going to do the giveaway for his book, finishing up the variant buzz. And the last one on there, I looked at these books, and I'm always iffy for like my weekly picks because I personally always like them, but then I'm like, I'm always worried about one length of videos, right? Because I don't want like a 15-minute video. But these Lady Death variants, Lady Death, Apocalyptic Abyss, always great covers. They also do great on They always have a lot of Kickstarters for them. But these are one of those like Zenoscope, but with a way bigger following. So what do you think of this?
So the creator of Lady Death, Brian Palladino, he's one of those guys. He's really built relationships within the industry. He has a character that is, God, 20 years old. I don't know how old we're talking here, but a character that has stood the test of time in the market as an independent character, a la, say, Spawn and Savage Dragon. And we're getting to a point now where we've always seen Lady Death fans in the marketplace. Lady Death has always had its niche audience. But now we're starting to see some momentum with Lady Death. I mean, the last few Lady Death releases have been hot. Right. And this is another book where all covers sold out, similar to what we just talked about with God Mode. People were jumping all over it. Now there's I think a Bombshell variant again. And the last Lady Death one-shot that we saw, the Bombshell variant was the go-to.
Right.
So we may be looking in that kind of same realm. But I've never been a big Lady Death. Honestly, it's never been something that I've bought. It's always been something I'm aware of, but never something that I looked at. I don't think, as a speculator, forget about the Bolo list, just looking at it as a personal speculator, I can't ignore Lady Death anymore. It's time to start paying attention. There's money to be made here.
I like some of the not really even, I guess they're Kickstarters, but like one of my favorite artists who's a Zenoscope artist is Paul Green. He does a lot of like their exclusive variants, their comic store variants, their cosplay variants. But he's done a couple Lady Death covers that whenever I see him, I pick them up. Sometimes if it's a Kickstarter tier, it's a tier that I can't afford and I hope to pick up in the aftermarket later. But yeah, these Lady Death, they, like you mentioned, they have a following. You say niche, I would almost go as cult-like following, but they're definitely there. So
that definitely, and momentum is building in this, and I don't know where that momentum's coming from. And the biggest thing I can think is Brian Palladino and the way he works social media and the way he interacts with comic stores and the way he interacts with collectors, I think is got to be that kind of secret sauce that has pushed Lady Death even more.
Right. That brings us to the end of the variant buzz. And as always, before we get into Jack's long-term play, we have the Art Germ 9.8 from Slabbed Heroes we're going to give away. And we're going to keep with what we've been doing. We think the easiest way to do it is with trivia question. I think that's the most fair. So we're going to ask a trivia question here, and first person to answer it in the chat correctly will be the winner. Like I said, Nick has this book, so we'll get the address and get it over to Nick, and he'll get the book out to you guys. But the trivia question for this one's going to be, who in the 1960s Batman TV series, who played Catwoman in seasons 1 and 2? And while you guys are answering in the chat, we're going to bring up your long-term spec. If I can bring it up here. And that's going to be your G.I. Joe. Sorry, I just
Sierra Muerte, number 1. So last week we talked about Star Trek Q Conflict. And I included Star Trek Q Conflict, and I talked about how it's a mini-series with a popular cult fan base following. This is that all over again. You're getting a G.I. Joe series done by Copra's Michael Fife. He did the artwork and the writing. You're getting, obviously, you're going to get a low, G.I. Joe is low printed anyway. The Real American Hero series, the flagship series, is one of the, you look in the Comic-Con Diamond list, you're way down there. I don't want to misquote a number, but a couple thousand every month. So you're already looking at a low print run in the typical G.I. Joe series. Now you get a G.I. Joe mini series that a lot of dealers, they don't want to jump on. And if they're grabbing copies, they're grabbing a few copies. And if they're grabbing a few copies, they're grabbing that cover A and B. They want that Michael Fife stuff to kind of play to that Copra audience. What we saw is 2 variant covers in this issue where the artwork, in my opinion, was amazing. I think it would be very tough for me to try to pronounce the cover artist who did the 1 in 10. It's like Trakhaninoff, but you got a
now you got
a skull version of the Cobra Commander, and it's a very cool cover. Prices right now are about $7.99 plus shipping, but copies are moving. The book that's on my list, though, is the 125 by cover artist Myrick Michaels. You may know that name. He's done a couple covers for Marvel, I think a Deadpool that was popular.
A lot of, Ninja Turtle covers also.
Correct. And what he's been kind of cult famous for is the Deadpool covers, the Counterpoint comic covers. So he's well known within that community. Well known if you're an Instagram guy. He's well known within the comic book fiend club community. So he's got a little popular cult following. And this cover, you get an homage to those Marvel anniversary covers that they did, where you had the popular Star variant, where you had the Muppets that was popular, and they did G.I. Joe, and they went across all their lines for the anniversary, where you've got the little faces. So you've got kind of an homage cover. You've got a lower print. Now, you're talking about a 125. When you start looking in the market at this book, you don't see this book. I saw this book on TFAW. I saw this book on Midtown, and I didn't see this book much anywhere else. I've seen 2 copies on eBay so far. A week before release, a copy was pre-sold, along with a 110 and a cover A and B, the 4 covers for $50. So even right there, you're already at or above ratio. The only copy that's been listed since release day was listed and sold today. It was sold by Ultimate Comics, and if you're not familiar with Ultimate Comics, that's a comic store chain in North Carolina located in the Raleigh-Durham area, but they own 5 shops. So you got 5 shops, and you got 1 copy listed on eBay. Midtown had maybe 2 or 3 copies listed on their website. So you're talking about a book where you're probably talking less than 100 print run. And the last copy that sold for 60 plus shipping. So this is another book where if you go back and look at where Q Conflict is now, it's being listed at $100. And this is another book where I think G.I. Joe fans, when they become aware of it, and I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan, And when you have to go back and you can get it, it's gonna cost. So if you see this one at the LCS, and I don't think that you're gonna have a great opportunity to see it, but if by chance you see it and you can get it around that ratio price, you should absolutely grab it.
Right. You heard from him. I think you did a good job of explaining that for sure. Sorry. So we do have a winner, and it's going to be Roger Heller. The answer to the question was Julie Newmar. Julie Newmar played Catwoman in seasons 1 and 2, and Eartha Kitt played in season 3. And then I forget there was another one for the movie. And to be honest, I didn't know that before I looked it up to find a trivia question for this live stream. I mean, I knew both of them played her, but I didn't know, season 1 and 2 and all that good stuff. There are some actually cool Julie Newmar Catwoman statues, especially on Sideshow. But so, Roger Heller, email me at simplemanscomics@gmail.com. Email me your address, and we'll get it over to Nick at Slabbed Heroes, and we'll get this out to you guys. But before we move on to one final announcement, I like to always bring up, hey, this is stuff that I had in my weekly picks that wasn't on the Bolo list, and I wanted to discuss that. Sorry, I'm just trying to clear the screen here. And what I got was, these are the covers I had that weren't on the Bolo, and we kind of had the discussion prior to the live stream, but I had the 1 in 75 Joe Jusko Red Sonja, which was also my pick of the week. There was all types of variants for Daredevil. My favorite of them all was the 1 in 10 Gabrielle Delato, and then of course the Tony Stark Iron Man number 8 drowning in the whiskey cover, cool ass cover. But the only one that I can't believe wasn't on your list, if I had to pick any of them, would be that Joe Jusko 1 in 75 Red Sonja, because that's just fantastic. And I don't see too many people, well, I can't say don't see too many people ordering 75 copies, because Dynamite's almost worse than Marvel with how many covers they'll put out for a title. So it's not hard to get 75 copies of a title. But so like we said, we were kind of having a conversation before this, but what were you? I understand some of it's probably just space and having too many books. But
yeah, I think Red Sonja, the reason why I kind of overlooked that book a bit is, Dynamite was doing a lot of store variants for that book. Right. So I think that you're going to see a lot of stores, while it's a high ratio book and a lot of stores may not order a ton of it, you're going to see a few stores that get several copies. And sometimes that can hurt Dynamite high ratio variants. But I'll be honest, the artwork is stunning. I didn't do a whole lot of looking into it. Daredevil, we talked about. Daredevil number 1, I'd say of any number 1, had some of the least buzz going this week. It's kind of slept on. Right. And that Delato cover is amazing. And it's really in line with the series that we saw IG Comic Store release. They are a retailer located on Instagram, and they do a lot of store exclusive variants. And they released a Thor, an Amazing Spider-Man, a Punisher that were very similar, kind of same series of full black background with the painted. So this is a 1 in 10 variant. 1 in 10 variants are tough. They don't always pop in the market. I had it on the list and deleted it for space because when I went through and did my final look at the list, I said to myself, I think I like this cover. I don't think there's any buzz for this cover. I think it's on the list because of buzz. And as we talked about with that Iron Man cover, amazing cover. I struggle with those covers because I struggle with, it's not a book that has reader buzz. It's not a variant cover. Where do I fit in the kind of cool art? I think Adam Lebednik does a great job of that with the Wednesday 1, highlighting some really kind of cool cover art. And I think that a lot of speculators were on this. You were on top of it. And we're definitely seeing those start to dry up. Right.
And back to the Daredevil, I think that's my favorite cover. But like you said, it's going to get caught up in the wash because that's a 1 in 10. There was a 1 in 25. There was a 1 in 50 Jamal Campbell. There was a Joe Quesada. There was even a 1 per store, a 1 per 200 Quesada sketch. Or not sketch, but Virgin. But out of all of them, just my personal preference, that all black cover is going to be hard to get in high grade. I will tell you, not to keep plugging the sponsor, but Slabbed Heroes, he does have them on his site if you want a 9.8 in that Daredevil 1 through 10. But yeah, those are just ones that I like to always say, okay, out of what's in the weekly picks and what's on the Bolo, what are like some some bigger contrasting type titles? Because me, I have anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes of video to talk about whatever titles. Where you have a thumbnail that you're trying to get, unless you want to put it in 4 font, you want to keep it limited, and because if you make it too big, that takes the purpose of Bolo out of the way. It's just like, hey, here's comics that are coming out. So I think it's always good
Right.
for us to bring these up and compare and contrast the differences between the list and the weekly picks.
Well, and even today, when I was going back, I wanted to go back and look at when that Catwoman cover that we were giving away from the giveaway with Slabbed Heroes, I wanted to see, well, when was that on the Bolo list? The answer was 1010. And when I got to the 1010 Bolo list, and I really started looking at the old original Bolo list when I first started doing them, I realized, man, they were a lot smaller back then. I really kind of expanded that list. But it's so tough. If people knew every week how many messages I get about books left off the list, that people want to make their arguments for. It's very tough. It's very tough to try to make that spatially fit.
Yeah. So that wraps up the Bolo list. I do have one kind of big, I think it's a big announcement. So if you watch, I have that Tuber Tuesday series that it's 2 weeks in, and this past week I touched on Comics with Bueller. Awesome YouTube channel. I mean, that I think he's only been around. He's been around maybe. I don't even think it's been a full year, and his subscribers is just off the hook. So he had me as a guest on his live stream this coming Tuesday at 9 p.m. I'm gonna have him on as a guest with a separate live stream on my channel, and we're not even really gonna talk about comics. We're actually gonna talk about how we run our YouTube channels. Sometimes we get questions uh, through Hangouts, DMs, asking about different things. This was one thing that I was like, hey, when I've, not that my channel's super huge, but when I was 0 viewers, 0 subscribers, trying to find how to even do a YouTube channel, what to use, these are things that I wish I knew that Bueller and I are going to have a live stream and talk about our lessons learned, what works for us, kind of how workflow, editing, thumbnails, just all the different stuff that we put into our YouTube channel that may or may not help other people out. I think it's a good opportunity. Plus, I'm going to learn from him what he does, and we can bounce ideas off each other to help our own channels out. So it's definitely going to be a cool live stream. We're going to have some comic talk in it, but the emphasis is going to be on how each of us, the work that goes into our YouTube channels. So this coming Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and definitely look forward to having Bueller on my channel because great guy. Comics with Bueller. If you guys haven't checked out his channel, make sure you do so. Probably one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. So I'm privileged and honored and really look forward to having him on my channel. But with that being said, Jack, I'll let you get the last comments.
Yeah, the last thing I'm going to do is follow up your plug and say I definitely think people need to check out that show on Tuesday. It's something that I will be definitely watching. As you can see from the split screen video, there's a difference between the production quality that Brian's got going on and what I've got going on. So I'm in the early stages myself of learning the YouTube game. So I'm going to be tuned in, trying to pick up some tips and pointers from 2 experienced and YouTubers with a great community following. And, I think Bueller is a perfect subject for the first week. I was talking on the phone with Comic Tom yesterday, and we both said that the big key with Bueller is the way that he engages with the community. People love him. So if you haven't checked him out, a perfect time for you to check him out is on the Simpleman's Comics live stream with Bueller talking about YouTube. And a lot of you guys out there, you've got your Instagrams popping, you've got followers, and you want to expand into YouTube. This is a great jumping off point.
Right. Like I'm saying, I'm not no beans trying to think that I got like this super great YouTube channel, but I just figured there's some lessons learned and some of that stuff that if someone would have put that information out for me when I was spending money or what type of stuff to buy or what to look for, there's a lot of type of behind the scenes that goes into that grind. So we're gonna sit there and talk about it, and if we can help other people out, get to where they need to be faster, by all means, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a good conversation because there's a lot of people in this chat and a lot of people this community that have their own YouTube channels. So people in the chat can offer hints and tips. I just think it's a good conversation for us to have. And with that being said, I do want to thank everyone that's been in the chat tonight. There's been good conversation coming on there. We're trying to do a better job of bringing the chat into the live stream. Besides, actually, I did actually bring the chat into the live stream, but bring it into the conversation more. So we definitely appreciate everyone that's in the chat. And so I do think, Jack, are you good with next Thursday night, or do we need to move it? Is next Thursday?
I'm good.
Okay.
It's up to you. It's up to you.
I'm good with it. It's just Valentine's Day, and I've been married long enough where it's like McDonald's, and I'm kidding. It's more than that, but yeah, I'm good. So as of right now, we'll keep it scheduled for Thursday night, regular time, 9 p.m. And I think that'll about do it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely appreciate everybody in the chat. Appreciate everybody being lively tonight and tuning in with us and hanging out and talking new comics.
And a huge thank you to Nick, Slabbed Heroes. Definitely appreciate sponsoring the giveaway. Definitely check out his site. I know a lot of people probably already have. slabbedheroes.com. But that's it, and we'll see you guys next week.